That might be a problem. I'm thinking
we're
well into
It's not recording. Okay, at 4 o'clock, call the meeting to order. Roll call.
J.J. Reinhardt.
Here.
Mark Dennis.
Here.
Bonnie Good. Here. Nathan Tormellan. Tim Harden.
Here.
John Kelly.
We have a quorum. Thank you, Bonnie. Has everybody had a chance to take a look at the minutes?
Make a motion to approve the minutes.
Thank you, JJ.
Second.
Got a second? Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Any public hearings? Not seeing any. Any old business? Bill Hyday?
We made our presentation there in March for the Copper Top event venue. Since that initial presentation, looking at probably retooling our ask just because I don't feel it was as refined as it probably should have been. Probably a little, we shot our shot, and I don't think it was as directive as probably needed to be. Received some good feedback, some good instruction on the go forward. And I think that providing a little bit more in-depth financial information for you guys, the impact that we're making with it, with the venue on a local level, just more nuts and bolts for you guys to use in your decision making, probably be a lot more beneficial. And I'd welcome any feedback that you guys have based on the initial presentation or questions that you guys might have. I'd be glad to field some of those at this time.
One question I've had some people ask me, just location-wise, is about parking. If you have larger events, then where's the parking at to supply you?
Jennifer, how big was the event yesterday afternoon?
It was 375.
They all made it.
And the
We've been figuring it out. Sorry.
The problem was 550. And if I drove through, I wasn't at the event, but I drove through, and like the entire downtown was just full of cars. It was nice to see it alive on Saturday night, but everyone found a parking spot. Kind of like Oktoberfest. If you want to come, you're going to find a parking spot. And no one complains about the parking. A little bit like walking over the railroad tracks becomes a bit of an issue, but if you just go down to the corner, you can walk across the street there.
But a crosswalk would be nice. But we'll get to that later. It's a whole nother thing. But yeah, that's always the initial, because where are you going to park and this and that. But there's a lot more parking spaces than people realize downtown, and it's walkable. And hey, let's get them in front of other shops and other businesses and this and that. See something. Hey, let's check that place out on the way out of here. So.
Thank you. I mean, we had a request made last time. I think suffice it to say, we don't have $2.6 million sitting around that we can give out on interest-free loan at this point. May never. So, I mean, we probably need to deal with the request officially. So would entertain a motion.
Okay. And I just want to say first, I think it's a beautiful building facility, and I have been there a couple times, and I think it's beautiful. But I do make a motion to deny the project at this time. We simply are not set up for this kind of thing. I'm interested in hearing other things in the future maybe, but so right now I would make a motion to deny it.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thanks.
Yep. We'll be in touch.
Okay, thank you. Quality of life grants.
Okay. You should have the grants in your packet. The grant subcommittee met last week, and we had 4 applicants. And if we can start with the Seymour Fire Department. They asked for $11,500 for 3 eliminator systems plus the installation. The total project is $14,225, and this would be for citywide usage and would include the industrial parks as needed, and it's for allowing safer navigation through traffic and busy intersections. There is a little bit of a discount if we grant them this request. Right now they have the budget to do 1 system and the installation, but not not multiple. If you do multiple at one time, then you do get a little bit of a discount. And so I think that's why they wanted to try to get them all done at one time.
Can you break this down in layman's terms and in one sentence tell us what this does?
My understanding is that it would help them to navigate through traffic and busy intersections more safely.
I believe it's the system where they can engage it and it'll turn the traffic signals to give them free,
Perfect.
rain through the
Flashing
intersection.
lights means they get a green light. Let's go that simple.
All right, I like it. Okay. So the recommendation of the committee?
Was for $11,500, the full amount requested.
Okay. Would entertain a second? Got a second?
Second.
Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, second?
Okay. The second was for Sukasa, and the grant request was for $2,000. It's out of a total project for $44,625 for the Bienvenidos program to increase community integration and connections, which would benefit the labor force and help school children. The grant is for workbooks for this project. It is an ongoing project and one that they expect to be long-term. And the majority of the project is funded by other grants, so there is definitely a lot of buy-in from other organizations in the community. And the grant recommendation was for $2,000.
Make a motion that we approve.
Need a second? Got a second? Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
All right. For the third one, for Tree City, this is very similar to the request that we had last year. The request was for $21,599. The total amount of the project is $48,630. This is the same amount as the previous year. Last year, with the funding, they took out some trees that were problematic, and then they added over 200 trees throughout the city, including downtown parks and other areas. As part of this, they also had an Arbor Day event, which I actually just attended last week, which was great. And I know they've got some brochures now out to spread the word of the program as well. And this is part of the quality of life as well as downtown beautification and everything else.
So is this gonna be an annual ask, or is this like a multi-year project, or?
My understanding is it is an annual ask, multi-year. The grant subcommittee wondered if maybe it would be annual for, say, like 5 years and then drop down to biannual, but we have not asked the city about that yet.
This is gonna be on a ramp?
No, this is for the Tree City.
The trees.
Oh.
Yeah.
I thought you were on this one.
I don't have that one here either.
I don't have anything provided either. I mean, I remember from last year and from last meeting, or 2 meetings ago.
Last year was the same amount.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
And it came up in a previous meeting too.
Yeah, it did.
I think 2 months ago maybe.
Okay. So do we have a motion?
I have a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Second. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Okay, the last one is for the Child Care Network, and they requested $5,000 for a mural for the large concrete ramp that they've recently built. They want to use a local mural artist, and this would be visible from 5th Street, but it will not affect the historical building. It won't do anything with that, and it's it's just on a modern part of the building. The idea was to have, make it a little more colorful and attractive, and also to tie into the city's murals that are spread throughout the downtown. So, theoretically it could be part of, tourism promotion as well, but it's primarily for the education and just beautification for the downtown. There was no artist rendering included with this. They said that they didn't want the artist to spend time on that without knowing if funding would be available. So I did send an email with a photograph of what the ramp looks like. And if you didn't get that, let me know and I can pull it up.
So does it come with a recommendation?
We did not have a recommendation. We invited Child Care Network to come today if they wanted to answer any questions from the commission.
Now
Without
back
having
to my first question.
Yeah, I mean,
I assume this ramp is gonna see some foot traffic.
it leads from the building to the playground, so it'll see a lot of traffic, certainly, throughout the day from the people who are using the Child Network facilities.
So, what does the artist say about the wear and tear on this mural? Because this seems like a whole lot of money to stack into something that's gonna get walked on.
Well, part of the mural is going to be on the side of the ramp that goes up to the building, so it won't be walked on. But then, it's my understanding from their presentation is that there will be other parts possibly on the ground for walking, so that they can use that to help educate kids as far as shapes and colors, and also some safety thing like directing them to the playground to go to the green frog and stop, and using different symbols for kids to be able to identify with. I don't know how much of it's going towards that on the ramp itself and how much is going on the side for visibility. I personally, when we were discussing it, would have liked to seen a rendering or at least some more explanation, because I'm like you, JJ. I know they're only asking us for half, and the visitor center is involved with the other half. Is that correct?
Well, that's what's on the applications, that the visitor center, they're expecting $4,980 from the visitor center. So.
Before we just hand that out, I would rather see something to see how much we're looking at.
I don't disagree. I'd like to at least see an idea of what's going to be on the concrete before we just say yes, and that winds up being something that isn't what we want as a community.
I'd make a motion to table this request till the next meeting and we have more information.
Does anybody want to say anything about the project?
I can, I'm Kate Garrity, I'm the executive director.
Okay.
Like I had told Bonnie, I didn't want to ask him to put a lot of effort into this yet until we had an idea of how sure the funding would be, but I can definitely get with him. He has ideas. He just hasn't put it to paper yet. For your question about the walking, we cannot put anything on the floor of the ramp because of the incline. He can't put anything on there. There would be, I would like to see, but if it's not possible, I don't know. There's a concrete wall that goes back to the playground, and we could put things on the side instead of a pathway. Those are discussions that we can have about how the wear and tear would be. For us, it's a safety. Taking a group of 10 2-year-olds in a parking lot is a very daunting task, and so teaching them, right now they just wipe their hands along the wall so that they're touching the wall at all times, but it would be very nice to have landmarks, because sometimes they run ahead of you and you can say, like I said, stop at the green frog or whatever it is. It'll help get some of that self-control for the kiddos. So, but I can definitely ask him to put some things together.
So should we table it then?
So we have a motion.
I'd appreciate you talking with them and getting some more clarity and some ideals of what may be on the side, what may be on that wall around, and give us an idea of what's going to be included in that. Like I say, we wanted something that fits with our downtown scheme and the other things that are happening as a whole. And we understand you have some other needs for it, and if we can accomplish both and make it happen, then it may be something we can do. But we need to at least have some idea of how big it's going to be or what's going to be included.
Thank you for responding.
I'll second the motion to table.
Motion and second. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay. Is that all from the grant committee?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Cole?
Good afternoon, everybody. It's good to see you all again. Not much on the plan update this time for you guys. The fund is currently sitting at 2.048 million, and we also had a meeting with Chad a little while back on all the contracts and project status, and we're going to be working on some numbers coming up here next couple of weeks. And next meeting, we'll come back to you with an update on how things are looking and all that good stuff. And you guys can check out your claims for this month, as well as, of course, your other fund balances. But if you guys don't have any other questions on the plan this month, that is it for the most part.
Are there any questions? I think the only question I have is what might become of our budget given recent developments at the State House?
Yeah, we're going to be, Matt can elaborate, we're going to be working through all that.
Yeah, just so everyone's aware, obviously SB1 had some pretty fundamental changes to how property taxes, income taxes, business personal property, all those aspects are calculated and going to affect revenue to some degree. That being said, really the only way to fully quantify what the impact is going to be is to do a parcel level analysis to determine how are these increased deductions for homeowners and new deductions for 2% properties going to affect our assessed value that then affects our taxing district rate. Other components of the bill will affect our TIF revenues based on that taxing district rate change. All that to say, we are currently developing a template right now that will expedite the process of analyzing parcel level data to come up with what is the impact going to be for Jackson County and Seymour, and really all the communities in the county. But then we can get a really good idea of what to expect as far as what is our revenue impact because of these changes. So some things to think about: business personal property changes. One good thing, they did protect the floor of business personal property depreciation for assets currently within a TIF. So even though you may hear that, well, now there's no longer a 30% floor on business personal property, that's for new assets placed into service after, I believe, July 1st of this year. So any existing assets that we're currently collecting revenue on, we're making our debt payments based on our TIF revenues, those assets will still remain intact with a 30% floor. It's just new assets we need to be concerned about. So really then the only thing that will impact our revenue is what is our taxing district rate going to do. They did raise the de minimis exemption for business personal property. That won't affect us this year. That'll be impacted next year. So all that to say, there's a lot of inner workings of the bill. We're working on quantifying it, and I hope to have detailed numbers definitely by the workshop so we can talk through kind of what to expect in future years as far as changes as much as we can know. Okay.
So it won't impact any of our 25 budget, and it'll impact the 26 budget minimally, probably.
Yes. Yes.
I know this was just past Friday morning, so it's really, really fresh. But
it is very fresh. There's still some very ambiguous language, especially in regards to TIF neutralization. They know that adding these deductions is going to presumably lead to units AV going down, which then leads to units taxing district or units rate going up, which leads to your taxing district rate going up. So essentially, they know that taxing district rates are going to go up, but they also know that your TIF revenue is collected on AV times your taxing district rate. They don't want your TIF collecting a massive increase in TIF revenue because your taxing district rate went up because of this bill and these deductions that they've added. So they do have a caveat in there in the neutralization time frame that says, hey, we can shift AV in and out of a TIF to make sure you're not experiencing a 15% in TIF revenue increase just because of these increased deductions. So that part has got me kind of some heartburn because there's no way to really quantify that. So I'll kind of just have to see what comes as we go. But to alleviate some fears, we have very good knowledge of this bill and its inner workings. So I'm going to make sure that if they're telling me that we need to shift AV out of a TIF, I'm going to request some verification and some detail behind why they're making that assumption. So all that to say, I'm looking out for you guys, and we'll make sure that no funny business is occurring.
You mentioned the template you're working on. Is that something that you'll be able to tell us each district how it's going to be affected by the time we go to workshop?
It should be. Yeah, our plan is, our firm was a huge part in, a lot of the numbers that came out and when discussing SB1 and some of the impacts. So, we really tried to be on the forefront of this bill. So we're actually designing the template to not only look at Jackson County, but all counties across the state. So our goal is to absolutely be able to tell us what is going to happen to city budgets, to RDC budgets, to taxing district rates, AVs, so on and so forth. The piece that makes it difficult a little bit is business personal property, because a lot of that information is proprietary, and getting a good grasp on how that is going to change, somewhat difficult. Getting a little bit of pushback, but we've got some things in the works to make that a little bit smoother as we progress down this path.
You mentioned increased deductions. Is that for residential or commercial or both?
It's not for commercial, it's for 1%, so residential homeowners, and 2%, so that'd be your ag, your, multifamily housing, assisted living, so on and so forth. 2% currently does not have any deductions. They're phasing in a deduction up to 33%, I think by 2031. So obviously that's a big change. That's gonna be the biggest hit, as far as from an AV perspective. The 1%, Indiana's complicated, and how our tax structure works is very complicated, and I think there's a lot of legislators that don't know the ins and outs, and I think some of what's being proposed doesn't exactly do what they were hoping it to do. I think we're just shifting some of the deductions around. There is a new credit that's been added. I think that's going to be, from a homeowner's perspective, the biggest reduction of tax bills from their perspective is going to be this new credit, which is 10% or $300, the lesser of one of those two. That's going to reduce tax bills and revenues. But other than that, we did just a comparison of a $100,000 home and a $500,000 home, not in Seymour, but in a different community. And the $100,000 home, their deduction amount did not change at all. The $500,000 home, their deduction went up $100,000. So that's not to say that that's going to be applied in Seymour. Every taxing district is unique, and that's what makes this so challenging. We can talk about this in broad strokes, but how does it specifically apply to us could be so different and unique from another community. So that's why all that to say, we're developing this template, and we should have a good idea of how things are going to impact us in Seymour, hopefully in the near future.
Thank you, man. Another question?
Does it make any sense?
It doesn't, JJ. Trust me, I know.
It's like, this law is for you and that law is for me.
I'll go back and check, but I don't think making sense is part of the prerequisite.
What's the constitutionality of this thing they're floating?
I'm not a lawyer.
It hasn't been challenged yet, to my knowledge.
I don't think it's in the final.
Get your guns ready, folks.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll see.
Yeah,
we'll see.
I mean, it's not.
I will say a lot of the changes are that they're implementing them over the next several years. So I think their thought was, well, let's just toss something out there and then maybe it gets adjusted as we go. And I think there's still some degree of some changes that are going to occur before it's fully implemented. So more on that to come.
Those are called technical corrections.
That's exactly right. Yes. There's already been a few of those.
All right, thank you, man.
Yep.
Throw it against the wall and see what sticks.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so everybody had a chance to take a look at claims? I think.
I do have questions on a couple. One is on from the chamber, and let's see, Dan's here. One thing I was questioning is, I know that y'all got funds coming from different directions, and I didn't know how one being released affected the other, where your situation is at now. For example, is this something where you need all of this now to do something else, or can you do half of it now and half in our fall withdrawal, or didn't know how that affected your process?
Okay, so we're finishing up the design phase of the project now, which means by the end of next month, they could actually be on site. Roof will probably be the first thing that gets reconstructed, just to secure the structure. We have already received $1 million from the county council. That was allocated to us back in September, I want to say, early fall, we'll say. The only thing that really has a contingency upon it is the ready funds, because that's a reimbursement grant. So I have to spend $240 to invoice them for that, or request the allocation of those funds.
So our 240 is to leverage other people's funds?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and having 240 from Seymour Redevelopment now gives me the ability to spend that and then being reimbursed from the state for those funds. That was the idea of the cadence behind it. Does that answer your question?
That does answer that question. The second question I had is, I'd like to see a little more details on invoices. This just says for the shop project, and I'd like some idea of where this is going, because I know this isn't enough to cover your entire project, but is this going towards roof? Is it going towards framing, construction, those types of things? And I realize that I'm not asking for strict details, but just in general,
Sure.
if there's 2 or 3 categories that this is going to, I'd like to see that, especially, as your projects move further in the future as well.
Sure. I can assure you by our construction schedule, which is still being formed, but the first things on there are what I would call hard construction pieces. Obviously, finishes, furniture, IT, things like that will come later. The fluff stuff will come later in the project.
Mm-hmm.
So these dollars from Seymour RDC will certainly be used for hard construction, securing the building, block work, roofing, getting into HVAC, things like that. But
Did you also have a question about Main Street?
Yes.
The Main Street people are gone, aren't they?
Yes.
Does anybody else have anything on this, or?
No, I don't.
Okay. Yes, I did have a question on the Main Street as well. The request that we got, thank you.
Oh, sure.
For that. The request that we got, I know we have already approved the $350,000, but it states in their request for that to be for operating expenses and support of the grant loan programs, which when we agreed to increase that, it was for the grant program only and not for operating cost. So I don't believe that we need to approve this the way it's worded now.
Does anybody have the minutes of that meeting when we approved it? I don't have it with me.
I looked it up and it didn't, the minutes don't really specify on it, but my understanding was, my memory is that it was, because of those 2 buildings, the Don's Dugout buildings, to help them, buy those buildings and then do the grant, programs. I don't think that we'd ever given money for operating expenses.
Yeah, I don't think we have either. Would you just prefer to see the letter worded differently before we pay based on that letter?
If we're fine in paying out the full $350 at once, then I would rather it worded be towards the grant and loan program.
Okay.
Because even in the other grants that we just looked at, I know that's one thing that we look at.
Right. I don't disagree. When the 350 was originally appropriated, it was appropriated based on certain assumptions. I know those assumptions did not include operating expenses. No one has made a motion to approve the vouchers yet, but would you be okay if it's paid after receiving a letter that clearly says it doesn't include operating expenses? Is that kind of your concern?
That would be, yes, I'm agreeable with that.
So it sounds like that's a motion, perhaps?
Yes, I'll make the motion that we approve the other claims and with the adjustment on this one, once we receive it.
I'm getting some head shaking back there. They'll make sure we get an appropriate letter then. Okay, thank you. We have a motion? You second?
Second.
Okay. Motion second. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Motion carries. Thanks, Jim. Appreciate the thought that went into that. Okay, any other miscellaneous business?
Airport, yeah.
None from this side, but I'll put that way.
Okay.
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for giving us the time to conduct our update of our 8-unit T-hanger project for the Freeman Municipal Airport. I'm Colin Smith. I'm the airport manager. So each person received a 2-page handout, one conducting a timeline update, and then the second based on a construction update of savings for the project. So based on our backstory points, so in fiscal year 2022, Brian had reported that we were in the planning stages of conducting a project for a 10-unit T-hanger, which would be the first airport-owned hangar conducted for a construction process in over 20 years at the airport. So our first plan was 10 units or 10 aircraft bays that included 2 jet pods. And then those would be individual containers, concrete flooring, individual overhanging doors, etc. So the RDC was requested information about the funding. And then the 10-bay configuration was determined to be too expensive for the budget. Based on that budget, the 10-unit hangar would be well over $2 million for that project. So by that time, we conducted and decided that it would be an 8-unit T-hanger project, which would be more well in the range of the airport budget. And then the current update, so the engineering estimate for the hangar project was at $1.4 million. And so the BIL money became available for airport use, and that set funding was conducted in 2022 as well. And so for basically the BIL that was expected for that funding was $775,000. The airport would be spending $250,000, and that would be conducted from a RDC grant of $423,970. In February 2024, so we conducted our bid opening, and the bid that was received was $1.9 million, which was $500,000 over the current budget of the airport. In March of 2024, we updated the hangar plans entirely and rebid the project. So basically, we separated the project into 2 phases. So phase 1 would be our site prep and site work, and then phase 2 would be our construction. And so the phase 1 actually came in under the engineering's estimate for $160,000, which was straight saved. And then the phase 2 construction, it was bid out, but it was still over the budget at $1.408 million. So we conducted a meeting with Dunlap, which was the receiver of phase 1, and then All Star Paving, which was the receiver of phase 1 as well. The engineering out another $226,000 in savings. So our total close for savings was close to $400,000 on the project just by doing extra works and meeting proceedings of the work to be conducted. And then due to delays in planning, the airport will not be needing the bridge loan of the $423,000 that was previously discussed. Basically, an incorporation for our current request now is a $180,000 grant instead. And that's specifically to cover the loss of the BIL funding. So for the BIL funding, it is updated each year. Each airport is conducted to expect certain amounts of funding, but obviously those can vary with time throughout the government and those grant opportunities. And so the loss of the BIL funding for the airport was $80,000, which is, compared to other airports, extremely good, that we didn't lose too much in our BIL funding because of the growth of the airport. And then $100,000 were over budget estimated based on airport spending. So that would be conducted after the cost savings of $400,000 on the current project. And now I'd like to hand over to Brian Thompson, the Seymour Municipal Airport Authority Board President.
Thank you, Colin. Thank you, RDC members. First wanted to state for you guys, and you may know this somewhat, about how unique our airport is. first and foremost, we have no tax levy for our airport. There are very few airports in the state of Indiana that don't receive tax levy. All our income is generated on the field. And secondly, the actual physical location of our airport. Airport in many of these cities have become surrounded by the towns, and they're very restricted in what they can do and what operations can be done, or they're becoming more and more restricted as time goes on. What we found out here at our airport, and this kind of, this 50 years ago this year, in the summer, I was learning how to fly here. I've seen a lot of change in this airport over those 50 years, and I've been basically involved here for that full time. I've never seen anything like what we're seeing today as far as opportunities go. And I truly believe that this group right here and Mayor Ludeman started that process in a way, because when the bypass road went in, we found a conflict with the runway free zone, so we had to move the airport, or move the one runway, cut it off at the one end. Mayor Ludeman said, well, if we're going to add 500 feet to the other end, why not add 1,000 feet to the other end? Well, the RDC chose to do that, and all of a sudden, all these jet operators that look at the specifications for airports before they decide where to go, see all these airports around that are 5,000 or 5,500 foot runways. They see us with a 6,000 foot runway, and they go, oh, 500 feet can be very important. An additional 500 feet can be very important to these jets. Just opened it up, put us in a different league. And all of a sudden, after that started, Mark, how many years ago was that when
I
that
think
ship
2012, something like that, maybe.
So at that time, I truly believe, watching this airport for 50 years, that seems to be pivotal. Because right now, then, all of a sudden, we've got military coming in often.
Every week.
Every week we have the military coming in. Now they're not only just coming in, they're buying fuel from us. We've got, with Colin's efforts, we got fuel cards for the military. So now the military can buy fuel. We get income to fund the airport through that right there. Then we've got these jets coming in. You may have seen we've got 2 corporate jets that are actually based at our airport now. If we sell them fuel, that's revenue for the airport to keep it going. So I truly think the RDC has been pivotal with helping us do that. I see this continuing to increase. The addition of this hangar will help our general aviation pilots. We've got growth in many directions, and as they say, strike when the iron's hot. Now, what we come up with on this project was, since it took so long and we were over budget, we worked very hard to get 400,000 of the 500,000 overage out. We couldn't get the last 100, and we lost money, as Colin said, on the BIL funds. That was restructured as the 5 years went on. So that's our request, is for the $180,000 to replace the bridge loan, which we will not need at this time.
So this is in lieu of the bridge loan.
That's correct. We'll withdraw that and replace that with this. At that time, then we can proceed and start the first new hangar in 20 years. And actually, we got more plans for more hangars after that. So our next plan after that is to build a corporate-sized hangar, because these jets we have based here, when we have storms come through or in the wintertime, they'll have to leave, and they'll base somewhere out of the south. We want to keep them all the time. If we keep them all the time, we get that much more important to them. They're that much less likely to leave. So our next project is to build a hangar for them. This is step 1, that's step 2. Any questions for myself or Colin?
You're reducing it down to 8 bays. Is 2 of them going to still be jet, or
No, we
just eliminated them?
When we were over $2 million with the estimate, and that was the engineering estimate that was off the first time. So we were over $2 million with that. That was our dream. Didn't work. We wanted to get it as close to budget as we could. So a building that is square and common in size is much less expensive than where you do size variations. So we went with that, just to cut that back, because we just couldn't justify that. And the jet pods too, JJ, would have been for a certain size jet, and then next thing you know, you get a larger jet there. So the plan for us, instead of those jet pods, is to go ahead with this larger corporate hangar in the future and be able to store whatever we'll size it for any of those jets that would be capable to come in here.
I do have the updated hangar plans if anybody might need them. But yeah, so as Brian was stating, those specific jet pods were only to incorporate, specific size aircraft. But our base jets that we have are much larger than what those jet pods were. And so the estimation cost of $700,000 by changing the plans to a normal compact hangar was very much more justified than a cost of that nature.
I mean, from, from my perspective, I fully support the project, and I know what we have done for the airport in the past. Our policy has been that we hear things a second time, so we'd ask that you come back, and in the meantime, we'll maybe generate some questions that aren't necessarily off the cuff right here. But certainly if there's any other questions, now's a good time when we have them.
Yeah, no,
Or contact Mark with questions personally for me, because he's got my information, and I'd be willing to talk to any of you folks anytime. I kind of love talking about the airport.
Yes, he does.
And, yeah.
The only question I have right now is, do you have a time frame on that next corporate hangar? Or?
So
The fiscal year 2027 is what our capital improvement plan currently holds. So we're trying to get those jets. They're already based here because on specifications you must stay at an airport 6 months and 1 day to be considered based at an airport. And those 2 jets are here way more than 6 months out of the year. And so we wanna try and incorporate those into our plans as much as possible, because when they actually incorporate their own hangar, that's more revenue for the airport, as well as confidently containing the idea of them being permanent.
So we have a runway counter, operations counter it's called, and it's electronic now. We've installed that just recently. Colin had some specific specifications from, was that the month of March that you reported to us at the airport board meeting, how the change was year over year?
Yeah,
Did
so
you report that?
Our Q1 of 2023, we had conducted a little over 400 operations within those 3 months. And as of compared to last year, within this year alone, we have conducted within Q1 operations over 3,100 operations. So within this year of Q1 of 2025, we have conducted 3,170 operations, which is well over than the comparison of our growth.
So that's how many different, that's what's happening out there at the airport. It's, like I said, in 50 years of watching it, it's amazing what's going on.
It's certainly a gem that even people who live here don't know we have.
Yeah. And then we'll work on social media. That's a plan too, to make that, to hopefully have people more aware of what we've got here. And, we talk about aviation days and things for the community. So we've got a lot of ideas we can implement. But any questions, please let us know.
Okay.
Absolutely. Contact us at any time. We appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? If not, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion.
I'll second.
Motion second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
no, I don't want to go home.
You can stay here.
I want to stay.
Motion carries.
I'll trade it.